What do you think is the most difficult part? Because that's something that we had two people, both Ming Fei and Amelia, wanted to know.
So I think just following on from the last question, one of the things that I think is difficult is to know when to ignore critical feedback. If you, no matter who you put your game in front of, you're going to get an opinion, and that can be, obviously that's great and everyone's entitled to their opinion, but the board game community is really diverse, and people have games that they like and people have games that they don't like, and everyone thinks they know what should happen to make your game appeal to someone like them. But of course, it's absolutely impossible to make a game that's popular with everyone. You might end up with a game that is like a 6 out of 10, and just is really inoffensive but bland as a result of it. So personally, I think it can be quite a challenge to ignore. You know, if you feel like it's moving away from where you want to be with the game, and if you're comfortable with the fact that not everyone will love your game, then I think that will help you in the long run. And I had an example of this actually with the artwork that I was looking for the game. I looked, there's no exaggeration to say, I looked for years, for the right artist for this game. And there were times when I thought that I had the right person, or I had the idea of the kind of art that I was looking for, but I would show it to people and I never ever got consensus, even on like world-class art, and never managed to get the consensus I was looking for. What I was hoping was that everyone would say, that's amazing, that's perfect, and there would be no disagreement. But I kind of eventually realized that there's no such thing. It's so subjective. And so when I decided I know what good art looks like, I'm going to go with in this direction, and it worked. I actually started to make some progress then. But I think that can be applied to the design process as well. But naturally, I'm kind of a people pleaser, which makes it quite difficult for me, because all I want to do is that if someone comes to me and they say, oh, well, couldn't you change it to do this, or couldn't you change it to do that? My natural reaction is to say, oh yeah, I could do that. But I don't.
I'm going to jump in, Kris. I think a key part of what you're saying that I think actually your people pleasing part can't even say is that the hardest part is trying to work out what your mind is and trying to work out what your values are, because there's, as you said, there's so much feedback from other people that you need to be able to trust yourself. And I know that sounds a little bit corny, but I think that's very visible in your game, that there was a point where you started trusting your judgment and your gut for which way the design should go and which way the art should go and that sort of thing. And suddenly it started snowballing, I think.
Yeah. Once you get confident or comfortable with that idea, it definitely gets easier, in my opinion. So it's something I was looking at. But I think the other thing to say about, what is the most difficult part of game design, we talked about it a little bit above a little bit earlier. It's such a broad process. There are so many different facets to it. And really, I think it will depend on a personal by person basis. Some people are great at coming up with concepts and turning that concept into a playtest, a prototype, and have that play tested. Some people are really good in terms of getting their head around the logistics side of it all. Some people are great at marketing and telling stories. So I think it'll depend, on an individual basis, what they might find most difficult. And that's where I think it's important to recognize what you find difficult and either try and work to develop those skills or to try and bring people in, which is, what we've done with Benji, because, I'm not very good at the marketing aspect of the board game stuff, whereas Benji's a master at it.
Thank you.
I have to say, I really like that idea of getting that balance right between improving based on feedback, but also keeping true to your vision and your ideals of the game.
Yeah, I read something the other day. I probably shouldn't name the film, But a film came out, and it was like a massive. It was a flop. It was a massive disappointment to everyone who was invested in it. And then I read that they'd made like a ton of enforced changes based on what some test audiences had said. You know, these what are they called? Those groups?
Yeah, like the test screen audiences.
Test screen audiences. And I just think, you know, it's the worst thing that's happened to Hollywood. I think, you know, was you can almost tell they've taken the director's love away from it a little bit. It loses something if you the more you take from it to make it more appealing. I think you lose something at every step that you do that, you know.
The balance it's all about that balance, isn't it? It's striking a line between understanding what you're trying to work towards and what your creative intent is, but balancing that with the feedback that you're getting, because I've worked with so many people who have not been able to get past the idea stage, where they have this great big idea and they can't get it onto paper. And often what you find is the second you've got it on paper, you realize immediately this absolutely doesn't work, and you just have to move on. But they spend so much time in that initial stage because they can't reach out for that feedback, that they sit in one side or the other rather than walking on that tightrope. I think you need to really walk that line of am I just committing to my big idea, or am I just committing to somebody else's idea? And game design is about walking that line directly in the middle, I think.